Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the EPZ Q5. This is EPZ's latest single ED and I would say a step forward in the pursuit of a more higher quality single DD application or model. Anyway, let me just quickly show you here the box. The box is actually a very cool design in the way that it opens up. However, my one had a little bit of an issue with it. But anyway, I'm sure you will be able to get the general idea of how it opens up. The sleeve is a bit of a dog to come out, but anyway, there we go. That's it. As for the sleeve itself, it's got just the main, the usual main characteristics of the driver. The graph actually is very much correct with regards to what I measured, which is a bit of a surprise because sometimes, obviously there being differences in the couplers being used. They're using professional couplers and manufacturers. We're using clones. The differences are sometimes quite noticeable. And even besides that, we never know as well what parameters they are using in the setting up of those measuring rigs. So it's always a little bit of an issue. But this graph actually corresponds very much to what I measured. But anyway, I'll show it to you just now in a second, my own. Just to point out that with regards to the Q5, it has an impedance of 26 ohms, which doesn't make it neither hard or easy to drive, and overall sensitivity of around 109 dBs. Anyway, that's basically it. Okay, as for the box, which is what I wanted to show you, the box opens up in this way. It opens up like that, which is pretty cool. Okay, you then remove this first section here, like a cover, and then underneath it brings the carrying case, the IEMs, and underneath that comes the accessories and everything. So pretty cool. They actually went to all the trouble of making a unboxing experience which is different from what we usually see. Very nice, very unusual, and in my opinion very well achieved. They actually did a pretty good job. Anyway, that's basically it there. Okay, and then it closes up again. Oops, closes up again like so. That's it. So pretty cool. Anyway, that's the box. It is what it is. This is the stock cable of the Q5. It's not a bad cable actually, surprisingly, though it's a little bit on the thin side. It actually measured decently, not within what I usually prefer, but having in consideration or considering that it's a stock cable, it actually didn't measure all that bad. The terminations are pretty decent as well, a little bit on the smaller side, but it's nice metal terminations. It's an MMCX connector, as you can see. Simple, nice. I have to say that to a certain extent I was pleasantly surprised. They went to the trouble of making sure that the accessories kind of matched the color of the actual IEM itself and everything. Anyway, as for the IEM, and I'm using an IVPIQ cable here. I'm using one of the. I'll link this cable afterwards in the description. It's a nice Palladium mixed cable that they have. As for the IEMs themselves, it firstly of all raised a lot of controversy because this is shameful. They are copying Meze. They've imitated Meze and it looks like the Meze and this and that. You know what, guys? Okay, fine, fair enough. So maybe they actually did copy in terms of getting some inspiration. I personally don't feel offended. I actually feel that copying to a certain extent is a form of flattery, to be honest with you. It means that you must have done something really well if somebody else is copying you. So I don't really feel offended by that, but fine, it is what it is. Why am I not getting this too? There we go. Really nice shell. It's a resin printed shell. Very small shell. I mean, this is tiny by comparison. Okay, and the 7Hz 0 is not a big IEM, but I mean, the 7Hz 0 dwarfs the Q5, as you can see. The 7Hz 0 looks like an overweight. Looks like it's overweight. Let's put it that way. Okay, while the Q5 looks like a nice, sexy lady. No disrespect intended to anybody. Anyway, the fit is not an issue. They are very light. If there is any care or anything that I must bring your attention to, is because they are so light, the fit is somewhat affected because of the lightness of the actual IEM, and then the weight of the cable in proportion being higher than necessarily the fit not being good because of nozzle length or anything of the sort. No. I'm also not using the stock tips, as you can see. I'm using actually BGVP whiteboard tips. These ones worked perfectly. I tried the KBR's 07 as well. They worked perfectly as well. I tried some tips which basically are like the LITZ short tips. They worked as well very nicely, but I just found that these whiteboard tips were the ones that I just preferred, period. I mean, nothing really more than that. Actually, I was forgetting to show you the case. Here is the case. Okay, EPZ branding. These are those ones that I was saying that look like the LED short tips, which are actually the stock ones, mind you. Here they are, the rest of them, as you guys can see. All right. So that's all the stock tips. They actually are they are exactly the same as the tips that come with the LED short IEMs. All right. It played perfectly with those tips. No issue. Like I said, I just preferred overall the seal I was getting with these ones, mainly because of that issue of the weight of the IEM. Okay, and that's it. That's basically what I have to say, or what I can say about the Q5 in terms of its appearance. It's got a stunning build quality, nothing really to be faulted when you consider this is $50. Really nothing that you can truly falter. They've done their work, period. The driver itself, the dynamic driver that they are using is an in-house developed carbon nano diaphragm driver. They've even got a patent number for it and everything, which I can afterwards, when I post on some of the groups that I usually post, I can actually try and put a copy of that patent number so that people can check it out. So like I said, they really went to town in wanting to make sure that this was properly done, that even the 3D printing of the actual shell wasn't done based on just they wanted a pretty shape. No, they actually went to the trouble of making sure that the printing and the shape that it has follows a specific design in terms of chamber that they actually wanted. So there's a sort of a chamber design, you could say, internally. Let me see if I actually can find a little bit of a picture here. Well, this is not the ideal one. This is actually not the ideal picture to show you, and you actually see my reflection on it anyway. But that cap on the faceplate is there for a specific position. Everything was designed to try and optimize as much as possible the performance of the actual Q5. So it wasn't just an exercise in doing something that just looked nice. They really went to the trouble, to the extent of wanting to make sure that it was properly designed. Okay, actually this is a cool picture for you guys to see how it fits in here. All right, there we go. What do I have here, and what is then the sound? I have here the following: 7 Hz 0, the Maca edition. I've got here the Japan Olina SE, which obviously makes sense, as it is one of or was for a long time, the go-to at $100 for a single DD. The EW200, which is SIMGOT's latest release, and it's in my opinion, probably the go-to right now, or one of two go-tos at around $50 for a single DD. Its brother, the EA500, which I consider now to be the one to go for under $100, and an IEM capable of trading blows with way more expensive IEMs, well, much like the Japan itself as well. And then lastly, on this corner here, kind of a forgotten Euro, which is a Japan Piccolo, again, which is a part, next with the SIMGOT. These two are kind of like the $50, let's say, two IEMs at $50 that I would have as my number one picks. There's another one that I also like very much, which is a TKZK Oranos, but that one already. I'm not going to say that the sound is radically different to these two, but it is different enough not to, in my opinion, to be included in this group, because these actually graph very, very similar. Perhaps the one that just stands out just a little off is the Piccolo, but these five here, they graph almost identical. What is the sound of the Q5, and what is the thing that straight away gets you when you listen to the Q5? It's about detail. You listen to this, and the first thing that jumped to my mind was SIMGOT EW200. That was the first IM that I kind of jumped to my mind. The detail that the Q5 has is very, very, very good. It's way, way more than what I was expecting. But when you consider that they did all this work, then you can understand that this work wasn't in vain. They were really wanting and trying to make something proper, and they've done that. So in terms of, let me just break it down in terms of the frequencies. Bass, it's not a bass monster, no. It is a bass which is along the lines of the bass of the EW200. So it's a clean, detailed bass. It's got a nice weight, but the slam, the overall slam in impact is on some occasions a little bit lacking. Not a deal breaker in any way, but I'm sure that it was done, or this is the reason for this is because of the way that it was tuned. It was tuned to be a very musically correct IM. It wasn't tuned to have a V type signature or anything. It's got a very, I would say, yes, it's kind of a Harman tune, but more it's a more of a leaner, let's say, Harman tune signature. Okay. Transition from the sub bass into the mid bass is perfect. No bleed into the mids afterwards. The way the pinna gain is done is nice and progressive. It's very relaxed. Male, female vocals come across beautifully. There's no really this one comes out. Male vocals are better. No, they come out beautifully. Everything is very, very balanced. Transition into the upper mids again, perfectly done, and treble, loads of extension, loads and loads of extension. Very good sense of 3D-ness. It's got this really, in that aspect, it reminded me as well a lot of the Chapeau and Olina, of how it sounds very much 3D. So that there has also been very well achieved. Detailed resolution, spot on. Soundstage, wide and tall, maybe could be a little bit deeper. Imaging, spot on. So technically, very, very good. Detailed retrieval, imaging, soundstage, resolution, spot on. The timbre and tonality are good, but when you start comparing, and this is a personal preference of mine, mind you, you notice that this is a timbre and tonality which tends towards being a little bit on the leaner side. Okay, there's that timbre and tonality that sometimes is a little bit on the thicker side, and if it's not done well, then it's too thick and it just it's not realistic. Then there's that one that's on the thicker side, but it's been really well done, which is the case, for example, when you listen to a lot of the Penana IEMs and ISN IEMs. They've got a more thicker timbre and tonality, but it's been so well done that it sounds very satisfying, very pleasing. Okay. And then there are IMs which are on the opposite end of the spectrum. They are lean, and then there are various grades of lean. Really lean ones, again, they then lack that enough weight to make things sound realistic. Certain instruments sound realistic, especially drums and stuff like that. Or then they have just the right amount of leanness to be just correct, and that's what this is. The whole idea that you always get, or at least that I got when I listened to the Q5, is about being correct sounding. That's it. They wanted something which was as correct sounding as possible. And when you consider that it's got this level of build, when you consider that it's got a decent accessories package, they actually went to the trouble of making a nice presentation and costs $50, I can only say that they've scored top marks. End of story. I can't really, you cannot really nitpick, as I've said countless times before. When you are listening to an IM of $500 or $1,000, your expectations are higher, so your margin of tolerance is much lower. When you are listening to a cheaper IM, your margin of tolerance, at least the way I do it, my margin of tolerance becomes much greater, because every characteristic that it's able to do that is really well done, I score it, or I give it extra benefit because it's a cheaper IM. They had to do it with a tighter budget. Everything had to be done with more constraints. So if they did it right, well, then I value that. That's why, for example, I've said as well many times that the moment at the current market, I've always had this idea that the law of diminishing returns. But in the current market as it is, you do not need to spend, honestly, you do not need to spend above $500 to get the performance of an IM of $1,000, $1,500, or $2,000 from a year or 2 or 3 years ago. You don't. You have IMs priced at $500. Let me actually rephrase that. You have IMs priced at under $1,000, which will compete very, very well and beat IMs costing $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Okay, and not going to get more into that, but I'm sure many of you that have tried very expensive IEMs and have also tried then these hidden gems or these IEMs of this new wave of IEMs which have coming out, which are way cheaper, will be very, very will attest to what I'm saying, will know that I'm saying the truth. So sonically, in terms of the frequency distribution, the Q5 is spot on. There's nothing I can point out of it as negatively. It's very competent when it comes to its technical capabilities. The only one that is a little bit on the leaner side is a timbre and tonality, but it's non-offensive. I mean, you guys know that that's one of the main things that I look for, if not the main thing, and so it's fine for me. And then, what can I say? It overall has a very nice and satisfying musical presentation, always with the premise of being very correct sounding. All right, okay, compare then to what I have here. Compared to the Zero, this is in terms of the build quality, it's a higher build quality of the Zero. The Zero has very good build quality, but it's a higher build quality of the Zero. Sound wise, graphically they look very similar, but if the Zero was good and was a definite reference at $20 and still is to a certain extent an excellent IM at that price range, it doesn't take you a long time to see that this is superior. The bass, the way that the quality of the bass comes across. I mean, Up and Up from Jeff Ryan. What else? Let me just give you a few examples of the songs that are songs that I use and you will understand better what I'm trying to say with regards to the bass. Elephant from Carol DeBach. This has got just that little extra more weight to the way the bass hits than on the Zero. It's a little bit more HIFIness, if that is the correct or even a terminology that I could use. We Are One from Black Coffee, a little bit more here as well than as compared to the 7 Hertz. It's very they are both very good IEMs, but you can definitely see that there's a reason why this costs what it costs and is an upgrade over the 7 Hertz without a question. Okay, that's it. That's out of the way. Compared to the Olina, this was one of the first surprises that I got. I was honestly expecting the Olina to completely annihilate or not, well, annihilate maybe is a strong word, but to completely overpower the Q5 and show that it's a superior IM to the Q5. And no, first the bass very equal, very, very equal. I mean, not much there, perhaps a little bit more slam there than over here, but nothing that really, the mids, surprisingly, the same quality of mids, no difference. But where the Q5 kind of took the edge was precisely in the area where I find the Olina to be, very proficient, which is in terms of its upper mids and high and treble and its technicalities. The Q5 is superior. It's just got that little extra, that smidge more treble, that smidge more detail. A little bit more 3D-ness to the sound. you know, let me rewind just a little bit and put things. If this relation here, apply this relation here, but again, you know, this was cheaper, this is more expensive, but this is significantly, this is definitely significantly better than the Zero. This is more expensive. This is twice the price of the Q5, but the Q5 gives it a good run for its money. Honestly, it gives it a really good run for its money. I was very surprised. Compared with the EW200, very much the same situation as with the Olina. The difference being here now we are comparing two IEMs which are obviously at the same price. Ultimately, there are instances where the EW200 has just a little bit more detail, okay, is a little bit more clinical, and it's just in those two areas where it just like I wouldn't even say loses, but it can just sound a little bit more sterile, okay? But I would just say that these two are equal. I'm not even going to say there's a winner here, okay? I'm going to say that these two are basically equal. So if that is a choice at $50 or up to $50 by default, then I'm just saying, I'm already saying that the Q5 is definitely a very solid choice for an IEM at up to the $50 price bracket, okay? Compared to the Piccolo, and I'm putting the Piccolo first because it's also got basically a very similar price range, about $40-$50 between that. The area where the Piccolo is superior, and it's not so much because it is actually superior, but because of the way that the mids and the highs are tuned to be a little bit more tame, more relaxed, more like I usually say, suave. Is in the bass. The bass here has got that little extra weight, that little extra warmth, which then confers a timbre and tonality, that extra little bit that is missing here that I personally like. So in terms of timbre and tonality, definitely here. In terms of overall detail retrieval, the Q5 is better. In terms of I would say musicality, equal. They both do it in a different way, but both very equal. I would again say that this situation here with these two is the same situation as happens with the EW200. We're talking about very comparable IEMs, although the way that they graph and the way that they sound is a little bit different. They both know how to cook eggs, but just in a different manner. Let's put it that way. Okay. There's no real winner here. Detail and cleanliness over here, a little bit more warmth, a little bit more coziness, a little bit more let's say organic kind of sound here. All right, and then finally and then lastly now the EA500. And how do I then compare these two, or how do I see these two? How do they stand next to each other? Well, there's no doubt that the Q5 has been well designed, it's well tuned, and it's got a fantastic sound. It was a very pleasant surprise, I have to admit that. But I don't think that it has enough to dethrone the EA500, in my opinion. It doesn't. Is it down to the way that it's been tuned? Is it down to the overall quality of the driver? I could say that maybe it's a multitude of factors. The truth is, the EA500's driver is a very high quality driver, much like the driver on the EW200. These two drivers are very high quality drivers, and if there is a difference between the two here, it's a difference which resides mainly on the fact that the tuning was done the way it was done. So the quality of the drivers actually, I would say that the quality of the drivers of the Olina, of the EW200, of the EA500, of the Q5, and maybe even the driver in the Piccolo, I would say that the quality of these drivers is pretty good. Perhaps the driver here that's the least quality driver is the one of the 7 Hertz. Okay, but the quality of the driver of the EA500, going back to the EA500 now, is quite noticeable. It is a very high quality driver. And it shows itself in very simple things. Up and Up from Jeff Ryan. The way that it just plays that song and the sax comes across. It comes across with a cleanliness that, it never becomes aggressive or harsh or something of nothing. While here, it doesn't happen until you reach a certain volume, and then you see that it starts losing its composure. Okay, let me see another one here. For example, from Dust to Dawn, from George Duke. Graphically, you would think that this has more impact on the bass, or is a more solid bass, but when you listen to it, that there has a warmth, a weight associated with the bass, which just makes it stand out. I mean, it's not very difficult to notice it. Twilight from Brian Simpson, again, it's another song where over there you notice, and as well on the EW200, you notice that the way that the upper mids and the treble are done, especially at slightly higher volumes, is a little bit more effortless. It's a little bit more polished as compared to the Q5. Now, let's be truthful. This is a excellent IM, in my opinion. It's been well tuned. It's been well built. If there is an issue here, is the fact that the EA500 has a crazy price. I mean, the EA500 could easily cost $100, $120, $130, and it would still be a very good IM. So much like the Chopin when it first came out with the original Olina, priced at $100 and offering a performance which was very close to the Oxygen, to the Tanstrom Oxygen, and that came and kind of disturbed the whole, let's say, balance of things. That is the EA500. The EA500 at $70 or $75, it's kind of disturbing. It's a market disruptor because it's an IM which performs way above, but way above its price point, and makes life for IMs at 100 and below very difficult. What can you say when you have an IM that's priced at that value and that performs at that value? You don't really have much to say. Now, the truth be told, that the Q5 is a good IM. I mean, it cannot be denied that it is a good IM, and as such is an IM that I feel deserves to be given a chance to prove itself, and people should at least try and listen to it if they have the opportunity. Then again, the price that it costs is not anything which is ridiculous. So those of you that can perhaps afford this value, because obviously $50 is money for a lot of people. So those of you that can afford $50 and want to try something different, want to try a more musically correct tune, why not give it a try? Give it a try and try it out, and don't be let's say biased by, they're copying Meze and so on and so forth. Like I said before, and that honestly does not bug me. Anyway, guys, I'll show you now the graph so you guys can have an idea of what everything here graphs like, and we'll wrap it up. All right, take care. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the EPZ Q5 review. Let me just remove here some of these graphs so we can see things a little bit better. Okay, this graph is the graph of the EPZ, and as you can see, as I mentioned before, it graphs almost identical to what this factory graph is shown. An apparent sub-bass focus, very smooth, very kind of a gliding type of style of bass into the mid bass, into the low mids, no bleed, nothing. Very slow, progressive pin again, picking at around 2.8k, maintained itself nicely plateaued, and then nice extension past 10k. This is with the original tips, the ones that look like the LED Shure tips. Okay, with the wide bore tip, what happens is that this is just slightly more pronounced. That's all. That's the only difference that happens. Okay, compared here with the 7 Hertz Zero. Similar-ish kind of graph, but straight away you can see that the 7 Hertz is way leaner in the bass, and then ultimately, although very clean and detailed up top, it doesn't match the cleanliness and the overall quality of what you get on the EPZ. Okay, that's it. The next one here is the Chopin Piccolo, and as I said as well, it's not really in the bass where you see the biggest difference. It's just on the balance of the bass into and the mids and upper mids and highs, and the fact that it's less energetic, it makes for a timbre and a tonality which is just a little bit more fuller, a little bit more lush, a little bit more rich. Okay, again, the Piccolo's got great 3D-ness as well, really very competent as well in terms of its 3D, of its technical abilities, just not as good overall as the Q5. I mean, it's not major differences, it isn't, and the reality is this: the Piccolo, the Q5, and the EW200 are from now my three recommendations at around $50. Okay, that's that. The next one now here, this is the Tropoan Olina SE. A little bit less bass as well, although when you actually listen to it, it's not what you perceive. Okay, mids are very equal, as you can see. The way that from 200 to 3K, the way that 4K, the way this is done is very similar on both. And then it's in the upper mids and treble that you just notice that the Q5, I noticed, it has just that little extra more detail, that little extra more, there's just a little bit extra there, and it surprised me in a very positive manner, because I honestly thought that Tropoan was going to just, show its might, let's put it that way, and completely overpower the Q5. No, that wasn't the case. I was expecting more or less the same situation as I expected with the EA500, let's put it that way. The next one now here is the EW200, and the EW200, as you can see, they are graph very, 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 very equal. And the funny thing is that although it seems like the Q5 has got an advantage over the EW200 in terms of upper mids and treble, no, they are very, very equal. And like I said, where you notice the EW stands out is then in the way that it maintains its composure at higher volumes. Okay, that's where I think it just and again, minor differences. I mean, guys, this is me really going into the nitty-picky, and it's based on the songs that I listen. I'll never forget, all of this is based on what I listen to. You guys will see on the playlist, but it will vary depending on what you listen as well, all right? And then finally, compared to the EA500, again, they graph almost identical, as you can see. I mean, the graph EA500, EW200, and the Q5. If someone was to tell me that this is left and right channel, especially between the EW200 and the Q5, I would quite happily accept it. I mean, this is more than acceptable differences from left to right channel. But again, what happens with the EA500 is that although the graph looks similar, it's then the way the quality of the driver, it's not the way, sorry, it's the quality of the driver that then manifests itself in showing a different performance. The truth is just as simple as that. The EA500 has got, in my opinion, a better quality driver, and has been tuned in a way that it showcases that quality in a better way. I mean, you never notice this difference in the bass, never. If anything, it actually sounds the other way around. It actually sounds like the bass of the EA500 is significantly more fuller, and it is fuller. It has got a superior timbre and tonality. All right. Anyway, guys, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this little review of mine on the Q5. Like I said before, don't just go out and buy it. Don't just take my word for it. But if you have a chance to try it out. You won't be disappointed. I can guarantee you that much. And yes, if you do have the ability and the extra cash lying around, give it a go. You'll be surprised. If you liked, let me put it to you this way: if you were a fan of the 7 Hertz and how it played, okay, this is a very, very, very solid upgrade, and one that does that style of tuning, has done it in a more complete manner, ticking more right boxes. Let me just finish on that note. All right, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you. Bye bye.